This is day 2 of the August 05 7-day retreat in Springwater. I was going to address the question that was put to me yesterday in the evening. How do you do this? What you mentioned during the talk, this getting slower and slower and slower in listening or looking or attending. Ever so slow, until what revealed itself to me, each tiniest moment becomes a joy to live. Not pain-free or ecstatic. Maybe the word joy can be instantly misleading because it's a thing we want. And this arouses the desire to have that, to get a practice to produce it, this ever more slowing down. Because we do not feel that every moment is a joy to live. So how do you do it, was the question. And for the moment, I didn't know what to answer when a question is put to you so directly. What do you say? Because there's already a time frame. Say something. That's not slowing down. But maybe you noticed it already today. If not, watch next time, tomorrow will be day 3. How sounds are slowing down as fewer and fewer people come in and sit down, and because there are already many people here who are sitting down quietly, the others are sitting down a little bit more quietly so as not to disturb. So you can perceive that in action, directly. How this hall gets quieter and quieter. It happens. It is not intentionally to go from more noise to less noise. It happens and can be followed beautifully. It is really a joy to perceive how less and less noise is produced. Yeah. The bee hasn't heard about this, so bumps against the window, but the sound itself was very quiet, wasn't it? Because it happened in stillness. Because the listening is still. When this listening is quiet, everything seems to have quieted down with it. That is how it feels, doesn't it? So the question, how do you do it, or how do I do it, it always stumps you for a moment. Is that the right word? Stumps you. Yes. Because you have never thought of a technique. It just happens as more attention is given to this moment of what? Of listening. As more attention is given, things slow down. This is how it happens. You can play with this, try it out. Try it when you drive, when you get the car out of the garage, back up, watch for traffic. Right right now. Listening. Not listening to something. Yeah, let's get that out of our heads. We're not listening to something. We're just listening. Or maybe we're not even listening. It's just being here with open ears and eyes, and every pore of this body seems to be open. Now, if you're a physician or a scientist, you say, well, what does this mean? Every pore of the body is open. And I myself ask people this and maybe stump them in a meeting. What do you mean by this? I can't explain it, but it happens when you want to really find out something, attend. Then things open up inside and out. They do. They do. When you're interested in something, let us pretend in our imagination that we're both walking through the woods here. Usually we talk, but maybe this time we're just walking quietly, and then there's a really strange sound that we haven't heard before. It's strange. And we may say to each other, did you hear that? And with that we stop. We don't keep walking and we don't keep talking. We just sort of, hey, let's listen. And naturally, we quiet down because you cannot hear something as you're walking and talking. Then all you can hear is what is being spoken. And even that is not usually listened to very carefully. We haven't really learned to listen carefully, but we're learning it now. It happens more and more easily, doesn't it? Unless you have some deficiency in hearing, which happens as you get older. So you may do this. It's amazing how this helps to make the ear shell larger, like these big things that are directed towards space. Big ears. Big ears that to catch as much as possible of these very, very fine, distant sounds. And there is a slowing down. And people report that quite spontaneously, that in a retreat they find that they're slowing down. Maybe not on day one, not on day two, maybe not even on day 3. Who knows? Everybody is different. But there comes a time when one realizes the whole organism has slowed down, or is in the process of slowing down with its usual movements. So as to catch more of what is going on. We do a lot of that quite spontaneously. We haven't exactly learned it or been trained in it. It happens. We do it automatically or spontaneously. I don't know what the right word is. So again, as we walk through the woods with a friend and we hear a strange sound, we say, hey, did you hear that? And we both stop talking. We don't know what to listen to because we haven't heard it, the other person has heard it, but we're listening. And then maybe if it is a bird call, it repeats itself. And we hear it clearer this time. Maybe the other person knows what that bird is and will give a little dissertation. on what bird has just when you call and what kind of a call it is. It's very interesting what people know about bird calls, whether it's this or that meaning. So the brain is not totally free to hear. It already knows something and is geared to hear that and to tell it to the other person. It's okay. It's okay to be so geared, and it's also okay not to be geared to hear anything particular and just be open and receive in wonderment. There's a nice word, wonderment. Wondering. Because we don't know yet what it is. We're just wondering. And in that attitude, everything that is heard is a wonder. It presents itself that way. It happens. So now where were we coming from? From listening? Listening in a new way, not specialized, in an open way, not geared to hear something particular, but to have wide receivers or receptors to pick up whatever is sounding. That's what is happening with these big instruments that are being put up to explore the universe, to find out what is happening in a universe we've lived in actually very briefly only, very short period. But we already want to find out and know more about it. So I don't know where I'm going with this. Are we together? Meaning you also don't know where I'm going with this? Or you yourself are in this state of wonderment. What everything is, but not by definition, but hearing it freshly. Hearing it in a new way that doesn't know and doesn't need to define. It just hears and wonders. So when people, I first was going to do this question here. What was that? Oh, people asking, how do you do this thing of slowing down so that things go so slow in perception, in listening, in looking, in attending, that every briefest instant is a wonder or is a joy that happens with a job that you have never liked, you have hated to do this. It's been ornery. And wonder of wonders, you find out that by slowing down in the perception, in listening, it's no longer ornery. Not that the sound becomes something so wonderful and special, but the whole state of slowing down, the whole state of being open to receive, that is the beauty of the moment. Do you get it? What we're talking about. This whole state of opening up in wonderment, not knowing what is there, but meeting it wholeheartedly. That in itself is a joy. Not what is picked up, this or that, it doesn't matter. But this state of openness and receiving without needing to know. Now please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying try to cast out knowing, that we don't need to know anything. I'm not saying that. Sometimes people come back and say, Toni has said, we don't have to know anymore. This is a false interpretation of what is being said. To do a job and to earn your living or do something well, we have to know and we have to learn and know more and more. And not saying cast out knowing. But play with it, how it is when the knowing recedes into the background and the being, open, fills the foreground, fills the space. So, to play with this like it happened to me yesterday or the day before, and in doing something that I was not particularly looking forward to, but by this process of slowing down, it became a wonderful, amazing thing. Not really thing, it is just a filler word. We use that a lot these days. When we don't know how to call something, we say this thingy or this thing. And how you do it? You find your own way. You may find your way in walking just by slowing down the steps. Each step slower. Or you may play with it in breathing, each breath a little bit slower. Not that slowness is value, that's not what is being said, but you asked, how do you do that? And I'm giving a few little hints how it could be brought about in our leisure time, which we don't have. But if there is a moment of leisure time, slow down whatever you are doing by doing less of it per minute, per second. And listen at the same time. That reminds me of another question which usually comes up with people who are here for the first time, and it's really nice to see how many people there are who are new. We often think, well, this is now we've reached our limit, people know this place and there are no more new people coming, but it's not so. There are new people coming. Why? Are we getting to be famous? There's not that many new people. But some people do want to find out what this is all about, and some people have heard from others that it's nice to be here, that it's beautiful landscape. We have had a man, he was a new person that first time, and he hasn't come maybe one more time. He loved the landscape. He sat with his sketching pad and watercolors and sketched views. And then he gave them to us, all of these different aspects of Springwater landscape. He gave it to us. And he even gave us things that he made out of like postcards or bookmarks. You've probably seen them lying there in the little tiny store that we have. It's one shelf. So we also have our sales. So some people do come because they love the landscape. One person told me that when she compared Springwater work to other meditative work, and she said it's really not so different. It's really very much alike. And then when I said, well, why do you come here rather than stay where you are? And she said, it's the landscape, the beauty of Springwater that brings me here time and again. So that is one motive to sort of drink in the beauty of the distant and close hills in their shading, in their change of shading. In the wintertime, as it seems as though all the color has gone out of it. If you don't look closely, if you're very open and perceptive, you see that there's very subtle coloring, blues and maybe reds on the hills. The green has gone out of it. And then the marvelous change when spring happens. New color comes into the hills and into the woods and into the grass, the trees, the walkways that are mowed so beautifully. Somebody said that again the other day. What beauty can come out of mowing? Mowing pathways into the grass. That's what Kyle, my late husband, used to love. He loved to mow and create pathways. He said, if I retire someday, I'll mow the throughway. Along the middle strip or so. Probably he said that because it seemed that would never be finished, that job. It would just be more and more and more to be mowed, which he loved. And then people are interested in what practice do you have here in Springwater, and ask that question quite straightforwardly. And again, I'm a little bit stumped. I don't know what to say. I'm just fibbing. I know what to say. Namely, we have no practice. There is no such thing as a definite, describable practice. Where did I read? I read in some kind of a description that people can do koans or can do this or that. It didn't seem quite to describe what is going on. Maybe I have said at times, if that's what you want to do, practice your koan quietly, not shout moo all through the hall. Then that's okay. But it's not encouraged to have a certain practice and do that audibly so everybody around you knows what you're doing. That's how it sounded in that piece of written description. So what I'm saying is whatever you want to do, do it. And do it attentively. And see what you find out about yourself. Or are you finding out anything about yourself as you practice a repetitive thing? Because this is we're coming closer to, if there's any real motive here or something to do, it is to get to know ourselves. To start from really being pretty much in the dark about ourselves. We don't know. We don't know what we are. We don't know who we are or what we are. We're sort of like a blind person in a dark room. That's what somebody used to say, maybe Roshi. Looking for the light switch. Sort of. Oops. Is that how you feel? A blind person in a dark room? It might be a way of imaging yourself and then acting or living according to that for 7 days. What I'm saying is it's free. It's up to you what you want to do. But if you are interested in what I'm interested in, it is really to get to know yourself in a fresh way. Sort of as though a mirror was being held up to you. A mirror which you can look at and see somebody strange that you've never known before. Because we don't know ourselves. We think we do, but we don't. What we know is images that the brain has built up over the decades, years and decades, has built up images consisting of what people have told us that we are, our parents and siblings and teachers, friends. They all imply in addressing us and discussing us what we are. And out of that, the mind builds images. Or, not what somebody else says, but what one would like to be. We have maybe read fairy tales. I was very, very enamored with fairy tales when I was a little girl. My parents gave me a small volume, but it was thick. It looked so interesting. It was so thick, almost as thick as big, as long. And these were the Brother Grimm's fairy tales. But in spite of the impressiveness of the thickness of it, I only read certain ones. The others I left to the side. I only read again and again the same fairy tales about princesses and little girls and boys who got lost and found themselves again, or were found. I could read this over and over, the terrible horror or sadness, anxiety of being lost, not knowing where home is, and then being found and led home. I could read that over and over. Did you have those fairy tales too? Where you needed to find a resolution to your problem, and you found it. And you read it over and over, and it's never old. There's lostness and finding, and the joy of it. So how did we get to this? Oh, I was talking about what is your practice here? Well, I haven't really called this a practice because it isn't. But it is not assigned to you. But we come with an impulse to find out about ourselves, don't we? Or don't we? Maybe not. At any rate, I will ask questions. Oh, we don't have private meetings anymore. We have very capable, fresh people, not fresh as far as coming here into the Zen Center. They date back as far as I do, many of them. But they have begun to take over the job of private meetings, which is a great help to me. And this way you people can get more occasions than it used to be. The occasions with me are groups these days. It's no longer private meetings. You may feel it's sad, although once this thing has taken hold, you have experienced the private meeting with very capable people. And in addition, the group meetings where we're together for a whole hour, and you can hear Toni respond to questions in the open, questions that used to be all very secretive, the meeting with the teacher was a big secret, could not be divulged. We were really, I felt very intimidated that I should not ever talk about what goes on in Doksan. That was a Japanese word for the private meeting with the teacher. Although it was half as fancy or secretive as I thought before I experienced them directly. It's just ordinary stuff. So, I don't call myself a teacher, which has aroused some, for some people, some raised eyebrows. I've even heard recently somebody saying, well, it's not the best place for you or for me because there isn't a teacher there. She says she's not a teacher. Well, this is not trying to put myself down, but the reason I say that is that I've come to the really deep understanding that this thing of knowing oneself, understanding oneself profoundly, cannot be taught. It has to be discovered by each one of us, directly, intimately. You cannot teach this or tell somebody this is what you are, because then you just raise images. But when something is found directly, that never produces an image instantly. What it does later on, we can talk about. The problem can arise there because later on the brain wants to make images and stories. This is what it is. A story maker and a storyteller, story reproducer. But insight and direct seeing, direct apprehending or seeing is not an image. It is instant and totally new and fresh, and cannot be, why should I even talk about it? It is for us to find out directly the amazing thing about it, to see directly what we are. It's not what we expected. Is it? Somebody was laughing. What is that? For a moment, was it for you as it was for me? I don't know. It's just woo, that's what it is. And then a nice coolness on the arms that are hot, sweaty. Words and explanations, they come later. For the moment it is the sound and then the pleasant feeling, or maybe you were already cold and then it's not pleasant. We are very cognizant of the fact that we cannot create the right temperature for every one of the 48 people here, or however many. But maybe as a word of explanation, or a few words of explanation, I do need it cool because this body produces more heat than is good for it, or is pleasant or agreeable, efficient. So please bear with me when some more coolness is needed than what you need at this moment. Maybe in 20 years we'll understand each other. Doesn't it happen? It happens to me that I understand so much about my grandma. I wish she was here and I could give her a big hug and tell her how much I understand her. Yes. But she was a wonderful person. She never complained. She just sat there and smiled and was good to be with. Never judgmental. Although my mother would say, you didn't know her at her prime time. Instantly talking about prime time, I heard the, for me, very sad news that Paul Jennings passed away. Oh, Peter Jennings? Peter Jennings, yes. He died last night of lung cancer. So he was a wonderful person. I just loved to hear him with his little smirk and a little irony. He never seemed to be totally convinced of the news that he had to convey. So are we getting on with the practice here? Are you getting good and confused? It's okay to be confused, because if you can say I'm confused, then you have already had some insight into yourself. Because as long as we think in terms of definitions, I'm this, I'm that, then we're not there, we're confused. Because we're nothing the least bit definable. Did you hear that? We're nothing the least bit definable. And that's the wonderful thing. I can't define myself, you can't define me, even though we're trying all the time to do it. And then we despair that we can't, but we don't have to. We don't have to define ourselves and the others. It's a chore we put upon ourselves, which is unnecessary. Nobody demands it, except certain schools. Not this one here. This isn't a school in the first place. So does it feel a relief that you don't have to come upon a definition of yourself? You don't. Just live open and perceiving this and now this and then that. And you don't know what box to put it into. There isn't any box to put it into. Just the sound of the AC, the air conditioner, the coolness on the skin. Many people sitting here and yet not intruding upon each other. Do you feel that other people are intruding upon you? Then look again or feel again. Listen afresh until everybody becomes empty of mass that intrudes. Now in the afternoon at whatever the time is, we have a group meeting, and if things are lingering in your mind at that time that you would like to clarify or go deeper with or go over again, that is the time for it. I was wondering whether we could say it is from what time does it start? 1:45, and by the calendar it's till 2:45. Maybe we can say, so we don't always transgress, it goes till 3. Is that okay? Or is that too long? Who is against it? You can lift your hand. So we'll try that. But then at 3, let's not go till 3:15. We will end here for today.